I just want to welcome everyone to the fiscal year 2021 TA Initiative Orientation. My name is Neelam Patel. I looked in the chat box. I know many of you already. Some of you I work with closely, so it's wonderful to see you all. The webinar series is about, I think, 7 or 8 different webinars for the TA orientation this year. And it is part of your special conditions for new TA projects and new TA organizations to attend. If you miss one of the webinars or you would like to refer a colleague or consultant to one of the webinars, everything will be recorded and they'll be posted on the TA to TA website, and Brianne will provide more training in the second half of today about TA to TA. And this webinar today is the first, and it will provide you with an overview of the TA initiative and the management of your project and TA to TA. I also want to introduce you to my colleague and partner in crime, Brianne Smith. Hi, Brianne, who is the Senior Program Manager at the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges. Brianne is the point of contact for TA to TA, and we are partners through and through with TA to TA. I think we communicate at least once a day about the project and work. And so, yes, she'll provide you an overview. Also want to let you all know that the webinar is closed captioned, and there is a chat box for you to write any questions you have. That would be great. And I just want to say welcome again to everyone. Welcome to the TA family. I invite you all to write your name and your organization in the chat box to each other. I know it's not the easiest when you can't see everyone, but hopefully one day we can all see each other again in person. And you can also attend some of our Connect calls and other events, and Brianne will talk about them so you can see people more. And now I am going to introduce Allison Randall. OVW's Acting Director, Allison Randall, will be delivering opening remarks today. Allison is OVW's former Chief of Staff, and she rejoined our office in June of this year as Principal Deputy Director. Allison is passionate about OVW's mission in meeting the needs of all survivors, and she has worked in the domestic violence and sexual assault field for over 20 years. We are so happy to have Allison back in the OVW family. And once you're part of the OVW family, you're always part of the OVW family. And please join me in giving a warm welcome to Allison.
Thank you, Neelam. It's really great to be with you all. I wish that we could be together. Many of us have been working together for 20 plus years, and the collective expertise on this call today is tremendous. I'm joining you today from Washington, D.C., which is the ancestral land of the Nacotchunk and Anacostans people. I really want to congratulate you all on receiving new TA awards or continuing existing awards. I know that the application process is no small feat. I know personally, and it's a challenging process. Please know how hard our staff are working behind the scenes. Neelam was personally helping folks and answering questions literally at all hours, and made sure that OVW was able to get all of our technical assistance awards out before the end of the fiscal year. So huge thanks to Neelam, as well as Lucy Moran on our team for that. And, I know most of you perhaps have had OVW grants, you've worked with us and you know us, but, if you are newer to us, you may not realize how passionate OVW is, right? We are an office of lifelong advocates and survivors. We are deeply committed personally to ending sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking. And we do that through you, right? By supporting you, who are helping all of our grantees and the field as a whole support survivors and change lives. And, this team is crucial, right? And it's a very small team, very small but mighty, doing this work. And it's a partnership with you all as, cooperative agreement holders. And again, I know personally, cooperative agreements are challenging, but it gives us that great chance to be partners together. Now, the trainings that you provide, the materials you create are really essential, right? But the one-on-one TA that you provide to grantees is also really important. When you're connecting directly with grantees, you are helping to ensure that they are able to develop and implement effective services for survivors and their families. And I know many of you have gotten creative with ways that you are doing that technical assistance, with ways that you're doing trainings, creating other kinds of, digital outreach and materials to be connected with folks during the pandemic. And of course, we're all hoping to work together for a time when we can actually have in-person meetings. That's a slow process that NELM and others are working on. It's DOJ-wide. I really look forward to working with you all over the next few years in partnership on creating deeply meaningful change. And, we have kind of a number of priorities that are guiding our work at OVW. Our top priority is advancing racial equity as an essential component of ending sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking. Right? We can't end that violence without deeply, meaningfully, profoundly, really non-performatively advancing racial equity. And that's important for us as OVW, and I know that's really important for all of you. And that's going to be crucial in the technical assistance that you provide, in your own work as TA providers, right, in our own work as OVW, and also through partnerships with culturally specific service providers, right? How are we sharing resources and lifting up organizations that are by and for communities of color? It's, of course, vital that we're doing this in an intersectional way and that we're improving outreach, services, justice response, prevention, support for survivors from underserved communities, right? Particularly LGBTQ plus survivors, immigrant survivors who have faced particular barriers. We count on you to help us improve as well, right? And we really want to hear from you about what you're seeing in the field and how OVW can advance this work. Addressing sexual assault in a more meaningful way across all the OVW programs is important, something that we'll be looking to you for. And increasing access to justice for all survivors, however justice looks to different folks, right? Justice doesn't look the same for everyone. And so for some folks, that is access to the traditional justice system. And many of you are playing a crucial role in strengthening those justice system responses, improving those justice system responses, helping them be trauma-informed and survivor-centered. For other survivors, it's not that, right? It's looking for other options for safety, accountability, healing, and justice. And this is a place where we're also looking forward to having conversations with you going forward about how we do that, how you do that, how our grantees do that, how we work together to support survivors in getting whatever they need, right? Because it's all about survivors and what choices survivors make and empowering them. A really important thing that any of us needs to be able to make choices is economic safety, right? So economic justice and financial advocacy for survivors is another kind of key important piece across all of our work that we're looking to do more. And supporting tribal sovereignty is central to our work at OVW, and it cuts across our grant programs, including technical assistance. So I know one thing that you use to accomplish these kinds of goals, is that collaboration. And we are eager to see how you are partnering with direct service providers who are also, like local trainers. I know many of you work with local folks to speak when you're doing trainings and lift up their work and be centered in the work that they are doing on the ground. So we are excited to be working with you and supporting and elevating these fantastic service providers across the country. Another really important thing, I know many of you already serve as peer reviewers for OVW grants. I really want to encourage you, if you're not already, to apply and also to share this with the OVW grantees that you're working with. We don't yet, but we will soon have updated information on our website. So don't send it out to the whole world now, but you can take a look. You can Google, OVW peer review. It will take you to the website. The information that's just on that website is accurate. Folks, just submit a resume and a short form to the email address that's on the website. And we are excited to welcome them in, right? We can't diversify our work if we don't have peer reviewers who understand what different kinds of services look like across the country, particularly culturally specific, community-based services. So we are really eager and really appreciate your help in that outreach. And if you Google OVW as a general rule, you just go right to Ohio Valley Wrestling. So do be sure to add peer review to that. And don't worry, we will be sending out information to all of you and to all of our grantees soon. So stay tuned for more there. Well, congratulations again. We are very grateful to have you as partners in doing this work together. I want you to know how personally important this is across DOJ, right? Some of you have heard me say this before, that, or you were there, right? Last month, the Attorney General himself, as well as the Deputy Attorney General and the Associate Attorney General, Vanita Gupta, she's our boss, she's amazing, right? Met with domestic violence and sexual assault advocates to hear about what are the key issues in the field and what do they want to see? What do you want to see DOJ do? And it's really difficult to get all three of them in one room together, right? That is uncommon. And they were there to hear from you, to hear from advocates, and to hear about domestic violence and sexual assault. It's something that they all care about, and we're looking forward to across DOJ expanding and strengthening our work and centering survivors across all of our work. So thank you all for the very incredible work that you do. And Neelam is the best at helping you as you are developing new projects. So I'm certain that we will be talking more, and I'm wishing you the best of luck.
Thank you so much, Allison. And truly, we are so happy to have you back and to help us guide us in the next stage with all our TA work and the office. So thank you so much. I know you're so busy for taking the time to give us a welcome. All right. And I got the arrow right there. There we go. So the next two slides are just an overview of the agenda for the different webinars. And you all got registered for them. You can attend the ones that you feel like you need to attend. If you're a new TA provider, a new staff person, you should attend them all. If you're an experienced TA provider, just select which ones you feel like you need a refresher on. So we have two this week. We've had this one today, the overview. Tomorrow we have one on developing effective evaluations with our OVW evaluation wonder person, Ginger Barron. And then we have one on December 2nd, which is the Grant Financial Management Division training. And then there is a larger break until the end of January, where you have the OCR and the fraud training. Then you have the first week of February, you have two more. One on developing virtual training in TA, and one on accessibility and language access for TA providers. There are also two other webinars that if you are a new TA provider or a new staff for a TA project are required to watch as well, is the grant audit process, and then the special condition on workplace-related sexual misconduct and domestic dating violence, which I'll talk about a little later on in the presentation. And so for today's webinar, these are the goals. We're just going to provide you a quick overview of OVW and the OVWTA initiative, talk a little about your special conditions and the recipient terms, project planning and project management, and then you'll learn a little more about TA to TA. And this is particularly good for those who are, again, new to OVW TA and new TA providers to learn about the different resources that TA to TA can offer you. Also, I want to say, please add your questions to the question box, and I'll pause throughout the presentation to answer any questions. If you would like to verbally share your comment or question, please just let Brianne know in the chat box, and she'll unmute your microphone when I get to the next pause for questions. If we don't get to your question, or if I'm unable to answer your question during the webinar, Brianne and I will get back to you separately. All right, we have a couple poll questions. We missed it in person. We missed those like icebreakers, right? But we have a couple questions to ask you all to just engage in this webinar. So Brianne will pull up the poll. All right, if you were a season, what season would you be? Oh, look at that. Got a couple summers, fall, no winter so far. Oh, there we got 1, 2. Excellent. I think we're stalling out. There we go. All right. Brianne and I were talking about this yesterday. We thought that both of us would be fall as well. I think maybe because we're in fall right now, but you've got that cool and warmness right now. So pretty cool. Nice. Next question. Who has been an OVW grantee? Not a TA provider, but who has been one of our grantees through one of our grant programs? Oh, wow. And this includes being a sub-grantee as well. I should probably clarify that. Oh, wow. Well, yeah, so it's, 60% above all of you have been granted. So you understand what the grantees' needs are and what you can provide. And even for those who are 38% that haven't, you'll learn. You've been in the field, so you know what the needs are. Is this your first time being an OVWTA provider? Got a couple yeses, couple no's. So we got some experienced TA providers here in the room, and we got a couple who are new, so hopefully they can learn from the ones that are more experienced. It's always good to connect with each other. And have you been a TA provider for 3 years or more if you are an experienced TA provider? All right, so yes, for many, no. So we've got about, 37% who have been a TA provider for less than 3 years. So welcome. I know there's always learning. Even if the experienced ones can say you're always learning different ways of doing your TA work and training and collaborating. So thank you. I think that's it, right, Brianne?
That's all.
All right. So I will shut that and I will move on. Okay, so just a quick overview of OVW Training and Technical Assistance Initiative. For those of you that are new, the short name is TA Initiative. And it's really about direct technical assistance and training to existing and potential grantees and sub-grantees to help them develop effective and efficient projects for their grant programs that are going to be the best to serve all survivors. The TA projects that we fund represent the vast needs of the different grant programs, professions, multidisciplinary groups, and the communities that are supported with OVW funding. It's very diverse. It's very comprehensive, even though we use that for some of our TA projects, but I think that's the best word to use, is very comprehensive of all the needs of all the professions and all the grant programs. The one thing I do want to make sure I let the new people know is direct services cannot be provided with TA funds. Sometimes when we get some new TA providers, and new staff that aren't familiar with OVWTA, they sometimes think that they can also provide direct services. So when a client, grantee comes to them and has some challenges, helping them out is fine, but not providing the direct services. So I just wanted to clarify that. So the OVW Training and Technical Census Initiative has grown from an initial probably handful of TA projects in the mid to late 90s to now about 180 different active OVWTA awards. Some of those TA awards were continuations that got a award in 2021, but they're still counted in the count. But even with that, we still got quite a bit of TA projects. There are approximately 80 different organizations that support the different TA projects. And we have around 33 program specialists and associate directors that manage TA projects. That's not all the program specialists and associate directors in our office, but those are the numbers that support TA. So when you think of your program specialists that also manage a portfolio of grants, they also manage a portfolio of TA providers as TA projects as well. So they're juggling both. And TA projects can represent different categories. And I always like to put things in different, like how this TA project represents a different program, issue specific, audience specific. So some of our TA projects are very only for a specific program, like some of our comprehensive for different grant programs, like transfer housing comprehensive, underserved, disability. And there's also some targeted and some other comprehensive that are not specific for like the overall for the program, but are specific for that program. Issue specific is, specifically for stalking, specifically on strangulation, specific for family justice, and it's really specific on what they are allowed to do. Audience obviously is what's the different professions that they're focused on. We have some that are focused solely on judicial education, some on law enforcement, some solely on advocates, but most of our projects are a combination. They're a combination of like certain programs that they're specific with, whether it's one or two, what's the specific issue, audience. So knowing the different groups of what your project can cover is really important. All of our TA projects, for those of you that are new, are national in scope, unless they are awarded to focus on a specific state. We only have two, I believe, in Alaska that are specific for Alaska, or region or special TA initiative for pilot or demo projects, which is focused on a certain different local organizations or communities. Okay. And then we go here. All right, so targeted comprehensive TA projects. So those of you that are experienced know the difference. You see the solicitation every year. There are some that are targeted, there's some that are comprehensive. And targeted are discrete issue areas that are intended to provide the OVW grantees with training and TA related to a specific knowledge gap or promising practice. They're focused on a narrow topic within one or more of the 4 crimes. Comprehensives are issues, topics that we feel we need consistent delivery on TA for certain grant programs, professions, or core critical areas. These are projects that we know we need to have in the long term. We usually fund them for 5 years. All the funding doesn't come in the first year of their initial award. But it's spread apart. Some of them are solely given by one program funding. Some are multiple program funding. But it's because we feel like we cannot have a gap in that type of services for the different grant programs, professions, or issue area. So how do you know if your TA project is targeted or comprehensive? Well, the easy way to do that is look at your project description that was in your 2021 award packet from Just Grants. And I had written for everyone the purpose area for which you were awarded. So you'll know that, and then you can go look at the solicitation. You can see if it's targeted or comprehensive. And if you are a past recipient, not this year, you can also go and check which one in the solicitation you were funded for. And you'll know which one you're for, targeted or comprehensive. And so Allison did mention briefly about cooperative and grants. And grants are grants, right? You're giving it to an organization. There's not really substantial involvement with OVW and recipient. We we'll work with them closely to make sure they're in scope of what they're allowed to do. We help problem solve if they're having challenges on developing or implementing their project. And that's when we connect them to TA providers or other peer-to-peer grantees to help them with their implementation. But they have a set thing that they can do based on the statute and provide the direct services. Cooperative agreements are substantial involvement between OVW and the TA organization on the performance of the project, the development implementation. It is a partnership. And I think that's the key thing that we want to keep stressing, particularly if you're new and you're really new to OVW and TA. It is a lot more involvement, but it's good because we can get what we're envisioning from the department, and then you're also able to envision what the grantees need, because deep down, you guys are the ones who have the ear to the ground. You're the ones working directly with the grantees, so you know exactly what they need. But it is that partnership with OVW that's really important to this. And so the next couple slides are really quick for those of you who are new to OVW, learning about the different programs. OVW has many programs. So the next couple slides are the formula grant programs, which are given to states and coalitions, states based on a formula. And I wanted to make sure I stress to everyone that the funding that comes from TA comes directly from the grant programs. TA doesn't have its own line item or own grant program within the statute. And each program has a minimum maximum amount that we can use each year for TA projects. And some of the programs also have other stipulations that we have to keep in mind. So when we put in purpose areas or when we fund an award, it really is trying to see which programs can contribute, which programs would be interested, which ones should be contributing, and which ones have money based on what they have to give as awards. And we work on this beforehand as well, but I just want to make sure you know where the money comes from. And so this is a couple of the slides for you. And then I'm just going to pause right here. Brianne, are there any questions? I don't know how to open the chat box.
No questions yet.
Oh, good. That's a relief because I just figured out the chat box part. Okay. So I'm going to go over the award documentation. And I had written this out what I usually would do when we got it from GMS. And then I remembered, oh, wait, we didn't use GMS. We made the awards through grants, through Just Grants. So I did see some people's award documents. Had no idea how it looked, but I'm assuming you all got an award letter that lists your project title. It has a brief description of your project that I had written out for everyone, which is really just your the purpose area for which you were awarded. Under that, I also wrote for everyone what your project period is, and if it's a comprehensive, and what year you are in your 5 years. The cooperative agreement and it also has your amount, your project title. The project title may be what you put in your solicitation, your application, or maybe something different. Based on my conversations with the different program specialists, or what you had before for your project to have some consistency. Has your authorized rep, your project start and end dates. So I don't know if there's anything else that has on there, but there's also your special conditions, of course, your cooperative agreements, and we'll talk about your terms later as well. And so getting to know your funding codes. So this is fun. So this one also, I had kept in the old slide from GMS. And then last night I realized, oh, wait, it looks different this year. I changed the slide because there is sometimes difficulty to figure out where your funding codes come from. And when I talk about funding codes, for those of you who are new, it's the programs for which your funding comes from. So remember all the different grant programs that I listed a couple slides ago. Each of those grant programs have their own funding code in our budget. And for each of the awards, funding comes from one of or multiple of those awards, based on what I said, based on like what's allowed from the program, the audience, etc. And knowing where your funding comes from will help you really focus in on your outreach and your deliverables for that audience and program. So Brianne was helpful enough to show me and explain to me how you can check your funding codes. So she said, in your assigned roles, if you haven't already done this, and this is done by the Just Grants entity administrator for the organization, then go to the funding balance availability where you can see the activity codes and amount. If you have challenges in trying to figure that out, contact me or Brianne and we can walk you through it. Also, you can contact me at the OVW Tech Assistance email address, and I have it at the end of the slides here for you. And you can CC your program specialist, and I will send you the Word document that I created for every award that has all your their recipient responsibilities, but I also included all your funding codes in your project title and your project description. So I can get that to you as well. So that might be the easiest if you don't want to figure out how to do that in Just Grants, but just email us and we'll get that to you. All right. Are there any questions, Brianne?
Nope.
All right.
But I did put your OVW Tech Assistance email in the chat box.
Oh, good. Thank you. So I do want to talk about special conditions, and the next multiple slides are just a refresher of a couple of the special conditions that I wanted to draw your attention to. But it doesn't mean you can skip reading the other ones. So make sure you go ahead and read all the special conditions. If you have questions about your special conditions, any of them, reach out to your program specialist. You can reach out to me and we can explain them. So definitely review all your special conditions. Your grant funds can only be used for the activities in the recipient responsibility section of the special conditions, what we'll talk about later. Any changes must be discussed and approved by your OVW program specialist. So you'll be discussing the deliverables during your planning period with your program specialist. But definitely take a look at it, make any notes of things that need to be modified. We try to do our best if you have had a reduced award from what you applied for originally or what's in scope on modifying those deliverables so there wouldn't be any changes after you got your award, but sometimes there are. And that's really just important for us to work with you on. So I'm going to go through this section pretty fast, the next couple slides. So number 9 is the OVW training guiding principles. It's a standard across all of our awards, the TA awards over the years. So definitely go to this site to just understand what you must adhere to for the guiding principles for grantees and sub-grantees. Limitation on use of approved activities. You agree when you signed off on the award that you will only use the awards for the purposes described in your application unless determined by any of the activities that are out of scope or allowable. So whatever was allowed and put into your recipient responsibilities in your cooperative agreement is what you would do. Any changes to the scope of the project would need to be approved by OVW and submitted as a grant award modification. Again, which we'll talk about a little later in Just Grants. Non-supplanting, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We've had this forever. So you know exactly what you should not be doing with your funds. Semi-annual final progress report submission, quarterly financial reports. I do want to make sure, I know there had been some challenges with some organizations being able to access their progress reports in Just Grants with some of our, the learning year that's still continuing. If you end up having some issues accessing those progress reports or needing to figure out where to go, just contact the OVW Just Grants Help Desk or contact me or contact your program specialist to help you out with that. And I also wanted to quickly mention that the Muskie School is our TA provider for for the progress reports. I believe they have a couple of trainings. They might have one for TA providers in January, but you can reach out to them. If you don't have their contact information, let me know. Otherwise, we can also just send out a quick email with their contact information so you can reach out to them, particularly for those of you that are new that may need help on filling it out. Otherwise, contact your program specialist or contact me and we can help you. All right, so this is the one I was talking about, that it's a webinar that you are required to watch. We did the webinar last year and we felt like it wasn't necessary for us to repeat it. And live again, we can use the same webinar. So this is your number 31 of your 2021 award, Policy for Response to Workplace-Related Incidents of Sexual Misconduct, Domestic Violence, and Dating Violence. Please watch that webinar. It is required. Your organization is required to develop a policy within 270 days. Some of you had this on your awards if you had a TA award last year, so you probably have this done, but double check that you have this policy in place in your organization and see if it needs to be updated. If you are new, we can also talk to you about it. It does not need to be submitted to OVW. You just need to keep it in your file, because if we come and do a site visit or an office-based review or you're getting audited, you will need to show that policy. So please make sure that you do have that in place. If you have questions about the policy, we can connect you to our attorney advisor, or you can contact Futures Without Violence. They're the ones that have the Workplace Violence TA project. We can also provide you with their contact information if you don't have that. All right, so a couple quick ones again. Program income, pretty self-explanatory. OVW trainings and TAs are free. They're free to grantees, they're free to sub-grantees, they're free to potential grantees and sub-grantees. If you are looking to make some program income, it will need to be deducted from your total allowable cost to determine the net allowable cost. So it is complicated. It's more complicated than I even realized, and I'm not a financial person. So if you do have questions about that, definitely ask Suheila's presenting the financial management training. You can ask her a little more about that one. If you have changes to your MOU, you don't have IMOUs for TA, but your MOU, definitely discuss that with your OVW program specialist, and those would need to be submitted in Just Grants, as I believe would probably be a GAM, a grant award modification in the scope. But we can figure that one out too. But if you're changing your MOU, that is changing your project. Prior review approval written materials, pretty self-explanatory. It's always been the same, at least give the OVW program specialist 20 days. Now, it does depend on the volume of work we have. It also depends on the extensive review of the product that we have to review as well. And I know I call myself out when I forget reviewing it. I know some of my TA providers are on here too. I personally don't mind the reminders, but it might be good to also have a conversation with your program specialist when you do your planning. What's the best way of communicating? What's the best way of submitting? And things can change. Things change for all of you. Things change for us, and what's working. So having that open communication on that review process is important. I will say from my best practices with reviewing materials is, if you're going to send program specialist materials to review, and I'm just talking for myself, is please make sure everything's been edited. Please make sure if it's PowerPoint, that's clean PowerPoint, that it's already ADA compliant, that everything makes sense, that the fonts are big and easy to read. It makes the job a little easier. OVW publication disclaimer, same as usual. That disclaimer needs to be on all the materials. Doesn't need to be on, it needs to be on your PowerPoint. It should be on your flyers. It should be on your registration. And copyright. I know there's always been questions about this, but one thing to keep in mind when you read the special condition is that we are partners in this project. So even though you've created it with the federal funds, OVW funds, we also have royalty-free, non-exclusive rights to reproduce, publish, or otherwise use the product, which also includes even sharing with other TA providers. TA assistance, technical assistance provider training requirements. It's also in your terms, but there are some trainings that you are required to attend. There is the Vera Institute of Justice training that they've now created a wonderful virtual platform for. There are also trainings that are optional for you to all attend, like the ILET trainings to build up your skills on facilitation and curriculum development. And then there's the consultant rate. And I wanted to spend a little time talking about this too, is there is a rate of not going above the 650 day at $81.25 per hour. What I want to make sure is that we keep in mind that you want to know what the going rate for the expertise is. So for example, I know many of you wonderfully partner with local advocates. And we know that advocates are grossly underpaid for their expertise and their education, the work that they're doing. But what is the going rate of that expertise? And that going rate of the expertise may be much more than what their hourly rate is at their organization. So documenting what is that expertise rate and what is that person's expertise, and giving them a proper consultant rate, not based on what they're getting paid at an organization that might be much less than what they deserve as their expertise. So thinking about that as well when you're doing your consultant compensation rate. And I know many of you do that, which I really appreciate. I know the field and the advocates appreciate that as well. Are there any questions or comments?
We have one person said, Neelam, thank you for saying that.
Okay.
And then one question, our old grant number is very different from our new grant number. Does that mean anything? Do we continue to use the new long grant number for everything?
Yes, I was going to get to it, but I'm so glad some of you are reading my mind. So there's that new grant number, and that is your new award number for that project. So let's say you had an award that was issued in GMS in 2019, and then you applied in 2021 for the purpose area again. Because we moved to a new system, you had to get a new award number. The award moved over. We were able to move the award from GMS to just grants, but we can't supplement that award number. So everyone has that new award number. And I learned on my own, because I was like, I don't understand what these numbers are, moo, and then there's all this other. So what I realized is, if you have a award that says moo underneath behind it, that means that you're getting funding from multiple programs. If you have an award number that just has part of one of the grant programs, you're only getting money from that grant program. And I don't know what the numbers mean, but that's your award number. So when I create my master chart of all of your awards, I'm going to pull that. So yeah, that's a long story to say, yes, that's your award number. And it's a very interesting number. Any other questions or comments, Brianne?
Nope, that's it.
Oh, great. Okay, so continue on with special conditions, and I'll talk about this later too, because I know you all are very excited about conference forms, and wondering like when we're getting back to it, because you really missed it. For those of you that are new, you're not missing much. For those of you that are experienced, you're probably rolling your eyes at me right now, and I know you are. So there's a couple of special conditions for you to keep in mind if you're going to do in-person events. And I'm not going to spend much time on this because right now it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'm going to talk about this a little more in another slide. So, but read the special condition. They're lovely readings. All right. And so a couple other things, pretty self-explanatory: prohibition on trinkets at conferences. So no fancy little little flashlights or stickers, food and beverage at conferences, and the conference expenditure reporting. So just reading through that as well. So 52 and 54 of all of you that got this new award, got an award in 2021. And if you are a continuation of a purpose area, you have a withholding. So this was put onto awards that still had money remaining, will still have money remaining in their current award after September 30th, 2021. And for some of your projects, you do have enough money to last you until next year, into a couple months, but this is what it is. And it gets removed once that award is done. We can remove it. And then there's the conditional clearance with release of technical assistance funds. So right now, everyone, all 2020 awards, even grant awards, all have conditional clearances. And GFMD is starting the review process of budgets. So you do still have the conditional clearance. There is 10,000 that you can use for travel, but well, who's traveling, right? Some people are, so you can use it, but it's really more for if you're doing orientation, travel, or any of that. But you do have that conditional clearance. You can ask Suhaila at the GFMD training a little more about number 54 if you have any questions. Brianne, are there any other questions before I move on?
Yes, perfect timing. Just about the consultant rate, what additional documentation do we need to provide to justify the rate for advocates who don't have documentation to show the going rate for their expertise?
That's a great question. And I definitely want to reach out to GFMD for this too. But what I had seen, and this is just, again, in Nealon's world, is if you have other consultants you use that have the same expertise and same resume and the work that they do in terms of expertise, you can use that as justification as well. I think that's sometimes the easiest and the best, because if we're paying someone who is a trainer or is a consultant or is a private practice therapist, and they've got a higher rate, they have the same expertise as an advocate, I think that can show that they have the same expertise. You also want to show that this advocate has 20 years plus in this field, has been doing this work, has done all this work. The going rate of the knowledge that she has or he has is important. But that's a good question. I it's a personal thing for me because I used to be a LAV advocate at $12 an hour with no benefits. And it's hard, right? When you're an advocate and you're not getting paid well. And I just don't want advocates to feel like they want to proceed with the trainings and be experts in the field, but they're prohibited based on the money that they can make. I'm not sure if I didn't really answer your question, but you know what? I think this is something we can bring in someone from GFMD to talk a little more about with TA providers to give us more guidance. Does that kind of answer your question? I don't know who it is. I don't know how to open the chat boxes.
It's Jose Juan, so.
Yay. Yes, we'll get back to you about that too. But, and Brianne, I'm sure, is jotting down the notes. I think I know how to close the chats now. There we go. Perfect. Okay. You guys all doing, I'm sure you guys are all doing okay, drinking some water. Okay. Special conditions, terms of cooperative agreements. So those of you that are experienced TA providers know what this looks like. It's your federal responsibilities and recipient responsibilities. And you are provided a federal program manager, program specialist as your single point of contact for the project. The federal responsibilities also is that we monitor the program development and the implementation and provide oversight function of the project. But it is hand-in-hand partnership. We coordinate together, we partnership, program planning, conference calls as your partners on this project. And the recipient responsibilities are a little more detailed in what you're going to do. It includes your deliverables. It might look different in deliverables as what you propose in your application, so really look at it closely. But it's really about what are you supposed to do and what is expected of this TA project. So the recipient responsibility also includes information about planning in-person events, submitting the conference request form, very similar to the other terms, submitting a revised timeline, posting all your events on TA to TA, uploading materials on TA to TA, and attending other OVW specific trainings, like we talked about the Vera Institute of Justice training or the orientations that we're now doing virtually. So those would have been required trainings to go to. And one thing I wanted to bring up, and I don't know if I know I put it in my notes somewhere here, but I don't know exactly where I put it, is when you're looking at possibility of needing to modify some of the deliverables, the responsibility on the OVW program specialist and the TA provider is to make sure whatever is being proposed doesn't change the purpose area, meaning it's not, as long as it's within scope of what that purpose area is, and as long as it's within scope of who your target audience and the grant programs from which your funding is coming from, that you as a TA provider and your program specialist as well, neither one can propose anything that would be out of scope as a deliverable, out of scope as an activity, or a direction of the project. So keeping that in mind when you propose any changes, and keep that in mind with your program specialist that may be new, may be learning about your program, your TA project as well, of what could be out of scope, what is in scope as well. Fran, any other questions?
Not right now.
Okay. All right, so project management, project planning. So one thing I wanted to list here for those of you that are new is sometimes you want to see what are all the things that encompasses activities. So I put meetings and roundtables. You've got curriculum meetings, trainings for grantees, national, regional webinars. I could also add here, virtual e-learnings, faculty meetings, on-site training TA, presenting at other OVW, non-OVW TA trainings, ongoing TA to grantees, which I'm so happy Allison stressed that is really crucial, that we know we each learn kind of all differently. Hence adult learning, we all learn in different ways. But when you can make that one-on-one connection with a grantee and work with them through all the process, that really does make a difference. And I know so many of you have done some phenomenal work pivoting this year and a half. I can't believe it's almost 2 years, and I don't want to say that out loud. But yes, pivoting anything that you've done in person to virtual and to provide more of that TA, because our programs around the country were struggling and figuring out how to do the services in an effective way that's going to make a difference and to keep survivors safe. And you all did that with them. So thank you so much. And so these are the activities. This doesn't include any of the resources or PowerPoints and manuals and toolkits that you all create for the field as well. All right, so I wanted to put the slide in for new people because sometimes it's hard to distinguish the difference between in-person versus on-site TTA. And sometimes it gets confusing. So when I think about in-person, and when I say in-person, we mean when you're doing events, conferences, trainings, where you as the TA project are paying for the logistics and room. You're doing national, regional, even local trainings that you're doing in-person training. On-site is when you are going on-site to train your TA, that you're to a grantee, potential grantee, sub-grantee, and they're the ones coordinating all the logistics for the event. It could be that you're going there to train the staff or a multidisciplinary group, or you're going to present or train at one of their state conferences. And then there's another part too, which is presenting at other TA events or non-TA events. So other national organizations. So that's where I really just differentiate that way. Are there any questions, Brianne, about this?
Not yet.
Okay. All right, conference request forms. Woohoo! No. So I have spoken to Sunita Joshi, who is our POC for conference forms. And we are hoping to do a refresher training for TA providers in late winter, early spring. We will let you know as soon as possible, as soon as we have a date set to get it, the invites out so you guys can get it on your calendars. We know everyone needs a refresher. I know there's lots of questions. For those of you who are current TA providers, aren't new, you know that we had one of our Connect calls last summer with Nadine on there to talk about events and trainings. Current review of conference request forms is 120 days. If you are wanting to plan something for the summer, talk to your program specialist, talk to me, talk to Sunita, and just kind of see what's going to work for you, what's going to work for you to get people in. TA created a document to guide TA providers on considerations for in-person events, and what you should be considering when you're thinking about doing an in-person event. I do know we get questions often now about travel and what to do. And so I don't know of any TA providers right now that are doing in-person events. I do have some TA providers of mine that are going on site, and that is their discretion if they feel safe and they want to go on site to train or to provide TA. And so one of my things to think about is you're going to want to maybe think about rolling out to do in person slowly. And it may start with you going on site first, or it might be doing a small in-person with a select number of grantees that you know are going to want to attend, because one of the things you want to keep in mind are attrition rates and meeting rooms and space aid and what's going to make people feel safe. I know there has been conversations about having a simulcast at the same time of doing it in person. There are pros and cons to it. One of the big pros is the cost of how that's going to look. Second is the technology behind it. If you go to a hotel that the Wi-Fi and everything's not connecting well, you're spending more time trying to fix that. So really think about what can be done still virtually, and what needs to be done in person. Because we know there are some professions that and groups of individuals that and topics that it's best to do those in person rather than virtual. So figure out how do you do that, and what can be done virtually, but what needs to be done in moving forward in the future in person. Are there any questions?
Nope.
Okay. What a great group.
I did post the considerations for in-person events document into the chat box to download. If you don't have the most updated Zoom application, you might not be able to see it. So it's also available on the website, and I'll show you how to access it later in the presentation.
Thanks, Brianne. So budgets, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because you do have a training with GFMD, but to definitely work with your program specialist on any revisions that are needed. There is a different process for submitting budgets. You are no longer sending the budgets to us. You're no longer uploading, but it would be good to send it to your program specialist, take a look at it first. But your program specialist will be in touch with you on the process and what they need. And GFND will be in touch with you for any changes that are needed for your budget and just grants. All right, so talking about just grants, another thing we all love just as much as conference request forms. So I put the links on here for the two places to find some resources. The first one is the training resources. There's a number of training resources. And the second one I found to be useful was the grant award modification document. So I found that to be useful and helpful. So what is really the difference between a grant award modification, which we also call GAM, and a deliverable? Changes, so a GAM is a change to a project. It's the project extensions. Programmatic GAMs are programmatic costs that change the project that don't require a budget modification, but it is a record of any budget changes. Scope GAMs can be changes to your MOU or significant changes to the deliverables in the project. Those definitely, when you think about a scope GAM for programmatic, to talk to your program specialist first before submitting something for that. Financial grant award modifications are budget reductions, budget clearances, sole source, and budget modifications. Deliverables are your deliverables, right? When you want to submit a PowerPoint for review, when you want to submit a request to travel on site, when you want to submit a request to present at a non-OVW training. It's for your toolkits. It's the final review and approval of the materials that you want to get approved. So talking about deliverables, and some of the other things. The first thing I do want to make sure you do is make sure that there is a grant award administrator assigned to your 2021 award. A grant award administrator must be assigned to do any of the budget work that's needed in Just Grants, meaning any changes that are needed for your budget, and at the end to get it cleared. So make sure you know who your award administrator is. Make sure they know to be on alert for any emails as well. So deliverables in Just Grants. So, one more thing, I forgot my number 2. Access, submit deliverables and GAMs to the point of contact. So this is very important. And I know some of you might have some better advice for your fellow colleagues. I know there are some organizations that really don't want to give that point of contact the access to submit deliverables and GAMs, because in GMS, you can only have one person do it. But in this system, you can have multiple people. And I advocate for that. And I think this is a good thing, because when you're the point of contact and you need to submit the deliverables, you're the one who's created it. You're the one who can upload it. You're the one who wants to make sure it's done properly. If you've got to go through other people to do it, messaging can be confused in the passing, right? Each organization is different, and we can't tell organizations how to do it, but that's one of the good things about Just Grants. There are a few good things. One of the good things is that it allows multiple people to have access. It also allows, even if you want to have the point of contact, to have access to upload it, but they're not submitting it. So if you wanted to review it before it was submitted, you can have them upload it, but then you would be, as the award administrator, submit it. So that's something to keep in mind. So deliverables, and I know there has been some issues with submitting deliverables in Just Grants. One thing I learned yesterday from talking to our help desk, our VW help desk, is if you upload multiple deliverables at the same time and the timestamp shows the same time, only the first document will show in your program specialist work list to review and approve. The other documents will not show. So to keep in mind when they're uploading, whoever's uploading deliverables, to not do them all at the same time, to just do one and then wait and then do the next submission. So I know some of you just bulk them up and then have someone upload them on one day at the same time, but not to do that, because otherwise they're not going to show. So one of my best practices is reviewing and approving the deliverables via email before you upload in Just Grants, because apparently if OVW change requests your deliverable, you can't make changes to that and then upload, resubmit it. You have to submit a whole new deliverable submission. So by doing it by email and reviewing it, going back and forth with your program specialist, then what I've done with my the TA programs I work with, I have an email saying I've approved it, and then they can upload that email along with their final product, and it's done. So that way it works out well. Even if I approve it before the event, they've got that documentation, and then when they get time, they can upload it. Every program specialist is different, but I find that to be working well without having to go through the system to do changes all the time.
Neelam, we have a question about materials. How many days for approval for presentations versus other materials? Is it still 20 business days?
It's 20 business days from which you need to know, but the challenge with that is the extent to which how much review needs to be done, and also our schedules, right? And so I would say 20 days is what we have in the special conditions, but to work with your program specialist on their timeline and their availability during that time to review materials.
Thank you.
Presentations are sometimes a little easier than other materials to review. For me, I can't speak for anyone else. Yep, so that I would just do that. I found that to work the best with emails, with materials, rather than going back and forth in Just Grants. Oh, I do want to add one more thing. I have a note here to remind everyone is some of you who are experienced with Just Grants know that the system will not auto save your work. So you will see a warning message after 10 minutes of inactivity. Then you will be automatically logged out if you're inactive for 15 minutes, and any unsaved work will not be saved at logout. So to make sure that you're constantly saving if you're doing anything in Just Grants. That includes like progress reports or anything else that you're working on. Okay, let's see. Okay, program planning your TA project. So keep in mind at the beginning of your TA award to set up a schedule of when you want to talk about planning, to go over your award documentation, recipient responsibilities, as well as your description of your project, finalize any changes to your deliverables and timeline, revise the budget project if necessary, and submit to OVW any updates to the timeline deliverables to review, schedule regular meetings. What may work for some is, and what's been working for me recently is after having a meeting, then schedule another meeting, but not having it at the same time. Because all of our schedules are so different and wonky, but be able to look it out and say, okay, after this meeting, let's schedule our next one. And that seems to be working well for me. But each of you are very different, and with your different program specialists to figure out what's going to work. Detailed timeline. So one thing to keep in mind, you may want to develop a detailed timeline different from your timeline you submitted. That maybe includes when you want to submit materials to your program specialist, when you want to get things done, when you want to get things back. I started a couple of weeks ago trying to figure out how I can be more effective and efficient and provide better services to my TA providers, because I know in the rush of getting awards out at summer, like everything just pretty much got dropped. So I'm trying to play catch up and respond in a better way. And so what I started doing is putting on my calendar dates that I expect I'm going to get materials. And then I write after I'm doing our meeting, and then I write on my calendar day I should return edits. I've just started doing that for the last 2 weeks. Seems to be okay. But I need to, I think we can do better in our time management. I could. But to detail your timeline might help out, and really breaking down everything that needs to be done. The first 12 months of your timeline should be finalized during the meeting with your OVW program specialist, the planning. For some of the projects that are continuations of a purpose area, you may not need to kind of finalize everything right away. It just depends with your program specialist, but at least feel comfortable enough that you have a clear picture of what needs to be done, at least for the next 6 months or so. And then to keep revisiting it, so that way you can see what's working, what's not working with your program specialist. One thing that I would also recommend is, and I think I have it on my other slide here too, is keeping a chart of your deliverables and keeping a chart of when you submitted them and record keeping of it. I know some of my team members are really good at keeping the record of it, so that they're keeping me in check and saying, I sent this to you this day, I sent that. So it's important to keep the track, because there's so many moving pieces of the TA project that being organized and keeping that record is helpful as well. Brianne, are there any questions?
We do have two. If you have more than one deliverable, can you include them all in one PDF to upload to Just Grants?
Good question. So I think, now don't quote me on this, y'all, I think I've seen multiple deliverables attached in Just Grants to a deliverable. So I think you can. If someone in our training right now says no, please let me know. But I believe I've seen that you can upload two or multiple
Someone
things.
did say no.
Okay, great. So Shawnee said no. Okay, thank you. So Brianne, you know what you do that I really like? Maybe that's what I see. You combine them into one PDF. Christina said the same thing. So Equitas I work with them on the stocking project, and I work with Brianne on the T2T. Both of you use one Word document and you embed the Adobe in each of them. That's where I've seen them multiple times, and it's easy.
Yep, we do combine into one PDF.
Yes. Yes, that's, I knew I'd seen multiple. So yeah, so that's where I say, I think that's what I say. So what Christina said and what Brianne said, that's a great way to doing it. If you need help on how to do that, you can reach out to Brianne. Christina's on here too. She's done it as well. And how to embed them into the Word document. Yeah, so that works out well. It's, you know, what's going to make your life easier with Just Grants is just figure out what's going to work for you. What's going to make your life easier? If it's going to be easier to just do everything for one training, if you have one webinar, putting the PowerPoint, then putting the flyer, or putting like anything you want to do, or you have multiple days, like let's say you have a 2-day training, putting everything in one Word document and uploading it. But again, working with your program specialist outside the system first to review everything. So that way you're not having to deal with that whole back and forth in Just Grants where you can't send back your deliverable, right? So doing this by email first, and then you can upload that with the email approval if you're not able to get that in the system before your event. But at least you have an approval that you've got it approved. That makes sense to y'all?
Lisa, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And one more, do you want us to submit updated budgets to our grant specialist or through Just Grants?
So budget reviews are going to be done through Just Grants. You're going to have to update only your web-based budget. And Suhaila can probably talk a lot more in detail about this during the GFMD. For me, I think it's always, first, I think it's good for you to create a budget. Even though you're going to do everything in Just Grants, to create one for yourself and then to send that to your program specialist and to review, to say, I've made the changes. Are you okay with these changes that I've made? But every program specialist is different, and everyone probably was going to operate in a different way. I would just think you got to do it in Just Grants, but you may want to have a Word or a Excel for yourself as well, because not everyone's going to want to go in Just Grants every time they want to see the budget on your team, correct? So you may want to keep that. You won't upload that in Just Grants, but you may want to keep that as a record of like what you're going to put into the system and for your program specialists and your staff. Hope that makes sense.
Those are all the questions.
Oh, good. Great. So I'm almost wrapping up, and then we'll take a quick break before Brianne talks about T2TA. Key thing with the timeline of the project is, like I said, collaborative meetings with your partners in their own timelines. Keep in mind that your partners have their other projects as well. They might have other TA projects, they may have non-OVW TA projects, they may be grantees that are providing services, that everyone's scheduling is different. And, you know, one of the challenges is kind of coming together and saying, this is what our timeline is. But when you create a timeline and you're expecting a consultant to work on something and get that to you in a certain time so you can edit it, then you can get it to OVW to review, you can have a conversation. That requires a lot of different steps, and that requires a lot of people's different schedules. So having a schedule when you create your timeline, really being a lot more detailed, may help you, may keep your consultants also on track. Because one of the challenges I always hear is, so-and-so consultant is supposed to be working on this, but they need an extension and they need the more time. And that pushes all your project time too, because you're also, each of you are probably working on other projects as well and other partnerships or your other TA projects. So you've got to figure out your scheduling within that framework as well. Because let's say you are an organization and you have multiple TA awards, there's individuals that are part of multiple of those, then they're also partners or required to do some work with other TA providers. That scheduling gets really complicated about when you want to get things done. You may want to get something done next month, but your main consultant or staff that needs to do it, they're not going to be able to get it done. So those are things you really need to keep in mind when you're trying to map everything out. And that's why it's always easier to do at least 6 to 12 months mapping out based on schedule and just doing a forecasting of the next year or two about when you want to get things done. And then every 6 months, revisit that. But include your collaborative partners in and understand their timeline and what they have, other responsibilities to get things done. And we know during this crazy 2 years, everyone has other priorities and responsibility with family and their health and just staying focused and safe, that we've got to also be mindful of everyone else's priorities and things in their lives. Okay. So OVW review process, so similar to the question, is yes, it's 20 days. And there could be different levels of review depending on the content and materials that need to get reviewed. But there's also, the scheduling on OVW staff being really busy. We're short-staffed. It's like, how is it reviewing material? So keeping that in mind when you're scheduling. And that's why I think having a timeline that's a lot more detailed will help everyone along the way in planning. There's time that's definitely needed to plan in-person trainings and conferences and the agendas. When I think about all the in-person events we've all done, and Brandon and I have worked together for a while and doing some events, a good event minimum in the past would take 6 months from beginning to end, looking for the hotel, putting the conference form in, doing the advertising, minimum 6 months. Now you're looking at least 9 months or so. So if you're thinking about something further on in like late summer, fall, this is an important time to think about it, but there are a lot of other factors we're all dealing with and what you need to do. So planning it out is important. And if you do feel like you want to try to do something in late summer, early fall, or probably late summer, early fall, talk to your program specialist as soon as possible you're planning, so you can kind of figure out what does that entail. What are the different steps and the different things that we need to do along this timeline to make this happen, if it's possible? And if we do a conference form and we still can't do this in person or get the numbers, what are our backup plan and things that we can do? And that's when my third bullet is just, including your timeline, when you want to find out center, when you want the conference form, sending materials, everything that needs to be done. Fran, are there any questions?
No, but somebody did say, thank you so much. This is good and informative.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's Nina. Thank you all so much. I'm almost done, I promise. So I put this in every year. It's the 3 C's I call: collaboration, coordination, communication. With working with your program specialist, it's hard sometimes to schedule. It's hard for us sometimes to work together and collaborate, and sometimes we're all way too busy, and it may be that, the program specialists, like I said, are managing multiple projects and grants and all that, and they can't respond to you immediately, or you might be really busy on other projects and can't respond, and that's fine. Life happens. That's what it means to work together and understand what you both need in communication and working. And I know, personally, I've been really busy and haven't been able to get back in time to my TA providers. And it doesn't mean I don't care for you all. Like, I love you all. And I want to connect. But it's also our responsibilities as OVW staff and your responsibility, TA providers, to make sure we're keeping that open communication and working in the best way that we can. There are ebbs and flows in our projects. There's times that I'm very responsive, and there's times I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put a flag, I've got to respond to this, and I forget. And and sometimes when I do respond right away, someone's like, wow, thanks for responding right away. I'm like, oh, I guess I haven't done this for a while. So keeping that in mind, but it is collaboration, coordination, communication with your program specialist, and knowing how each person works and how we can work as a team together. So outreach. So this is one thing, a new slide I added this year. I wanted to really talk about how to do effective outreach for your TTA. You all are doing some phenomenal work, and I know the grantees in the field are so busy, and sometimes they're not able to look at the emails and all that. But what are some creative ways that we can outreach projects and the work you're doing? You can get a list of the grantees for the programs you're funded from your program specialist. We have a TA provider, comprehensive for stops administrators, also will send out an email to the administrators. I believe it's on a monthly basis with events. And so we'll connect with the organization. We'll connect with also about what's the best way for us to submit materials as TA providers. I know some of you already do this, you're experienced TA providers, but for those of you that are new, we can help you with that process as well if you're getting funding from STOP. Introductory webinars. I know some of you as TA providers are presenting at other new grantee orientations for specific programs, but some of your programs get multiple funding or we can reach multiple audiences too. And it's also potential grantees, right? That it may be good to think about in January, February, March to do introductory webinar on your projects that can boost up numbers for TA and interest maybe to having you do a virtual training for their staff or something. And focus your flyers on TA. I think I'm going back to what Allison mentioned and what we've been stressing is I think grantees sometimes think of just the trainings that we provide, but you all are so well versed and you all have such great information and can help out on that one-on-one that sometimes, organizations that are struggling, that feel like they're alone, to know that they can contact you and that you can work with them and tailor the TA and what they need. I think when you do the advertisements to really stress the TA work you do, or even get quotes from other organizations that you provide TA for and show examples of what kind of TA you can provide. So one last thing that I added is every time every couple, when I get ready for this, ask the TA providers, like, what are things I wish I knew? And one TA provider came back with me with just a couple things that I wanted to share. Is your grant specialist is your partner on this grant. So to keep that in mind, even, the times that we're busy, the times that we may be, not responding quickly, the times that you may not be responding quickly, things that we are partners, that we as program specialists of OVW want you to succeed. We want this project. We funded the project. We really see the benefit of it. Introduce yourself to other TA providers, particularly for those of you that are new. It is hard when you're doing this virtually. When we used to do orientations in person was great. When we used to do all TA providers in person was wonderful. And I know we'd have so many new people and they would just be overwhelmed by the number of TA providers and people knew each other. A lot of us go back decades. But we can do these introductions virtually too. If you need help connecting with a TA provider, contact your program specialist or contact me. I will help you network and introduce you to people that I think you would benefit talking to. They are your best resources. We all can learn from each other. We can all build and collaborate with each other. And my third one is something I had mentioned earlier, is keeping a list, a chart of all the deliverable submissions of your materials. It's really important to keep that organized and keeping your emails organized and everything together so that you can keep your program specialist on track too. You can keep, if I'm your program specialist, you keep me on track with that. But you can just check mark, we got this done, and just seeing what you've progressed and done. And I'm done with my part. I have my email address here. I also have the OVW Tech Assistance box. I'm the only one that manages that one too. So you can email in both of them. Usually Tech Assistance is easier sometimes because my personal one, my work one gets filled pretty fast. So if you need anything, but you can contact me anyway. You know how to get in touch with me, y'all. And I really appreciate you all sitting through me talking.
Welcome back. Neelam, thank you so much for all that information for the first hour and a half. And I'm going to spend some time talking about TA to TA now. I'm Brianne Smith, as Neelam mentioned, from the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges. And I work on TA to TA, the TA Provider Resource Center. I'm going to talk today about the purpose of TA to TA, the services that are available to you through this project, and I'm going to talk about the TA to TA website and how you use it and interact with it. and also how it's a resource to OVW grantees. So I'm going to start with talking about the purpose of TA to TA. It's a direct partnership between the Office on Violence Against Women, the NCJFCJ, and all of you as OVW TA providers. So this is a unique project in that we get to directly partner with all of you. And this project grew out of a need for support for TA providers. So as TA providers, you support the OVW grant programs, and it was brought to attention that TA providers didn't have support for themselves. So this project was built, and we host a variety of services that hopefully help support you in the work you do so that you can work with grantees and help them with the work that they do. So this project was initially funded in 2011 with the primary purpose of hosting all TA provider meetings, so bringing TA providers together, and also developing a repository for the Office of Violence Against Women with training and technical assistance information. During the first 5 years of this project, the website was developed, and we started the webinar service, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And in 2016, this project grew into a resource center, now known as TA to TA, the TA Provider Resource Center. We also work closely with a couple other organizations that directly support OVW TA providers: the Asian Pacific Institute on Gender-Based Violence and the Vera Institute of Justice, who are experts in the area of language access and the use of interpreters. We work with Futures Without Violence, who provide information on effective facilitation of training and adult learning, and also with the Violence Against Women Act Measuring Effectiveness Initiative, formerly known as MUSCIE, who facilitates progress reporting and evaluation for the Office of Violence Against Women. So the purpose of this project is to expand your capacity as TA providers to meet the needs of OVW grantees, partners, and subgrantees, provide forums to advance the discourse and practice strategies for emerging and complex issues in the field, facilitate peer-to-peer information and sharing and learning, and also facilitate collaboration and communication within the TA provider community. TA to TA provides meeting services, roundtable services, webinar services, bi-monthly newsletters, a website that I'll review the different pages, but a calendar of events, a directory for TA providers, which is a great resource to OVW grantees, a library of resources that you develop as TA providers with your TA funding. And I'm also going to talk about some other services like technology supply packs, virtual platform scholarships, and how we've created in this virtual world a way to connect with one another. So first, I'm going to start with TA to TA, the website, which is ta2ta.org. This website allows you as TA providers to have a login, so you have access to different resources and information than the public, but it allows you to connect with us at TA to TA as well. This is how you request services through TA to TA. The directory is where you can find information about what other TA providers are doing and the calendar of events and who they are, the staff that support their projects and who their projects directly support, which OVW grant programs. TA to TA is a requirement of your special conditions in that you need to post your events under your TA awards and also the products that you develop. And this is another way for you to share information with your fellow TA providers and also OVW grantees. As I mentioned, this website is public facing, so your resources and your events, OVW grantees can come here and see what might benefit them and attend those or gather resources or reach out to you. The directory is really important. Right now, as you're attending an orientation, so are all the OVW grant programs, and we are letting them know about the TA to TA website and how they can come find contacts and resources and support for the projects that they're working on. And so this is a really important place for you to post your information and connect with OVW grantees and potential grantees as well. So the TA to TA website, as I mentioned, You can create accounts as TA providers. We recommend that they're individual, not organizational. So individuals at your organization, you all can have accounts, and anything tied to your organization, you'll all have access to edit, add, delete, archive, things like that. But as an individual, you'll also have access to the newsletters. We do send out through a marketing list newsletters and other information about upcoming events. So if you would like to be on those mailing lists, when you create your account, you can check mark that box to receive that information. And also in your account, there's something called the TA to TA engagement forum. This is where you can post questions for TA providers, resources you might think TA providers could benefit from. If you need help or have questions about events you're doing, about topics you're working on, who to reach out to connect about a specific topic, you can post that information here, and TA providers have direct access to respond to you. So this is a great way to connect with people in the TA provider community. I also post information here, and most recently I posted the post-pandemic considerations for in-person events document. So if you didn't receive it in the chat, you can create an account if you don't have one and access it through the engagement forum. I'm just checking to see. Okay. So first I'm going to talk about meeting services. What we consider meeting services is extra support for you putting on a meeting, whether that's virtual or in person. Now we know a lot of things have gone virtual and some things may stay that way. So if you don't have the capacity to have a virtual registration link, that's something TA to TA can provide for you. If you need help with material templates, participant lists, agenda ideas, timelines, and task lists, for putting on virtual or in-person events, you can reach out to us and we're happy to talk with you and help connect you with other TA providers who might be doing a similar activity or developing a similar resource that you are asking for help on. And so we're here to provide templates and also connect you with other TA providers. In terms of logistical support, we can talk to you about our experience with meeting venues. So if you are looking for a specific type of meeting venue with a specific meeting size, you have specific audiovisual needs, you have a specific area of the nation you're trying to go to, we can provide our experience and also, as I said, connect you with other TA providers that we've worked with that we know have had the similar experience. So TA to TA is here to connect you to other TA providers and provide our experience to you. We also, as I mentioned, work directly in partnership with OVW. So we also find it to be a great idea to reach out to your OVW program specialist and connect with them and ask if maybe they have tips and tricks and experience in what you are having questions about. We can also provide experience about our conference request form process, what we've done, how we have filled out the form, and also provide sample checklists and forms in terms of hotel meeting space and venues. We have gone to the Creating Accessible Events training with the Vera Institute of Justice. And right now we're going through the online version, which we're excited to see the virtual sessions that Vera has created. And they also provide amazing checklists in terms of finding accessible meeting venues for in-person events and also for virtual events. So in terms of what you may need if you're doing breakouts and the number of interpreters you need, things like that. So we can connect you with Vera also if that is something you have questions about. Our roundtable services initially was for in-person meetings, but again, we know that some of this has turned to a virtual platform. So for roundtable services, we consider these meetings that you would like to develop more information about a specific topic that has to do with your project, but you may have not budgeted in a meeting. You may not have budgeted in participants joining to provide input or experts on what you are trying to move forward in your project, but it does move your project forward. So this would be something that you want to do that isn't written into your project, but moves your deliverable forward. So we focus on the logistics, so you can focus on the content. For in-person meetings, we request that you submit a request 6 months in advance. You do need to let us, there's a form that has questions about how it impacts your project, how it moves forward, the priorities of OBW, what you need from TA to TA, and also what you can support with your grant funding. We work directly in partnership with Neelam, who will review your request, and then we can support participants, we can support travel, we can support consultant fees, the meeting venue, audio visual costs, and we work on an individual basis with you. So this is something we can provide to you to help you move forward your projects and deliverables and your training in TA. If it's a virtual roundtable, if the timeline is a little bit more flexible, but again, that is something where we can provide the platform. We have Zoom or Adobe Connect. We can provide closed captioning, interpreters. We would staff both the in-person or virtual session with TA to TA staff. We can support consulting costs for facilitators, possibly assist a stipend for attendees, and also support language interpreters. So if you do have something that you would like help with through your account on TA to TA, there's a Roundtable Services request form, and that is where you would submit a request to us. So far, do we have any questions about meetings or Roundtable services?
Do not see any questions in the box, Brianne.
Okay. I know I'm going really quickly today. So as always, you can always reach out to me. I'm happy to talk more about anything that we covered today, how TA to TA can support you, and how to use the website. So I will keep going. Our webinar services, which we're now going to call virtual event services because we have a lot of different platforms. We have Zoom meetings, Zoom webinars, and Adobe Connect. TA to TA, again, supports the logistics. We can support the platform. We can support closed captioning and interpretation costs if that's needed. And we staff the technology portion so you can focus on the content of your webinar. We have up to 1,000-person capacity in these platforms. And afterwards, we will provide you with what we call a post-webinar report. This includes attendee information, a recording, your chat transcript, closed captioning transcripts, poll question responses, and we provide all that information to you, a direct download for you to have the recording and do with it what you would like, post it to your website. It's an MP4 file, so it's yours to keep. This is our most popular service, and we're happy to support you because we just love being able to help you do the amazing work that you do. So if you have more questions about webinar services, please don't hesitate to reach out. Now that we've switched to a more virtual world, we do have financial scholarships available to TA providers outside of webinar platforms. So we can't support anything like Zoom meetings, WebEx, or Adobe Connect. But if you are providing training or technical assistance and you don't have the funding to try out different virtual platforms like video editors, podcast platforms, calendaring programs, or learning management systems, you can submit a request to TA to TA with the amount of time that the platform you need it for. And we can support the initial funding of that platform for you to try out. We know not all virtual platforms have a long free trial period, enough time for you to see if it will really work for your training in TA. So if this is something of interest to you, please reach out to me and I'm happy to talk more about it. But we're really excited to be able to offer this now that we are in this mass virtual world and there are so many programs to choose from. It's a bit overwhelming. So at the beginning of COVID, we did work with some other TA providers to see which virtual platforms they were using, the pros and cons, the costs, what they were using it for. And we did create a virtual platform chart that is a comparison of these programs and they might be of value to you. You can access this chart from the engagement forum, and you can also reach out to me and I'm happy to send it to you as well. Any questions about supporting virtual platforms?
I do not see any questions. I've got some good comments like TA helps a lot with the tech support and the services.
Thank you. We're so happy to be a partner with all of you. And I see people I know, but I'm also excited to meet the new TA providers that I see and new staff. So I'm just going to show you a quick video about one of the other services we provide. So I just wanted to get you some jazzy music in the middle of your day, wherever you are in your day. But this is our technology supply pack. So we know that virtual training sessions, conferences that you're doing, sometimes you have a need for a lot of equipment, and we're happy to be able to provide you this equipment. We call it an equipment rental, but there's no cost to you. If you need things like microphones, maybe headsets, we know that headsets can create better audio for different platforms. So if you're doing a week-long conference and you need some headsets for your staff, we're happy to ship those to you. We pay for the shipping to you and back to us, and we have the equipment here. So if this is something that could be useful to you, please reach out to us and we're happy to work with you. And that also is from a virtual platform called Animoto, that video. We tried that one out. So we're just also trying out different virtual platforms to see how we can spice up our virtual world over here. One of the other things we do with TA to TA is we want to connect all of you. That's important. We know that that is what TA providers want when we host in-person meetings, the getting together, the talking about what you're doing similarly, what you're doing differently, what you can learn from one another. So we are hosting monthly Connect calls. These are open to all OVW TA providers to come, share, problem solve, and connect. Sometimes we have themes based on maybe an awareness month or something that recently has come out from OVW or from a TA provider. So we will be sending out a 2022 calendar for both our Connect calls and office hours. The monthly TA to TA office hours have myself and Neelam Patel and our colleague Amy Pinklini Ford, where you can come. Maybe you're working on something that month and you have a question. How do other people do this? How have you done this? Maybe you have a question for Neelam about how to work with OVW or what the process or policy is. These office hours, we give an hour of dedicated time, and you can pop in anytime within that hour. So you can come at the beginning, you can come 45 minutes in, you can stay for 20 or 5. We just are there and available to you should you have questions. Neelam, did you want to add anything about Connect calls or office hours?
No, I guess the only thing I would add is that we really love to see everyone at the Connect calls and the office hours, particularly with the Connect calls. We do have some people that are coming all the time. That's just really great. And we get some new people that are also learning about TA and asking their questions. Usually there is a schedule, not schedule, like a little agenda, but sometimes for the Connect calls, it's just an open-ended. So please join us if you have any questions for either the office hours or Connect calls.
In office hours, no registration is required, and Connect calls, we do have registration, but they're not recorded. So it is just a great time to come and connect. I'm gonna talk about the event calendar on TA to TA. This is the public calendar that houses events hosted by OVW TA providers, but it is available to grantees. This is a special condition of your cooperative agreement. You must post events that you are doing, whether they're virtual or in person. And if they are in person and it triggers a conference request form, you must have this event on the calendar in order for your conference request form to move through the process. It is the TA provider's responsibility to update the details of events on the calendar. So if there's a date change, if your CRF gets approved, you're going to want to go in it and make sure that those details are up to date. OVW uses this calendar for reports to the Attorney General and other reporting purposes. So it's really important that this calendar has all of the work that you are doing and is up to date. We provided in the PowerPoint, which we'll share in the chat, and it will also be posted to the orientation page, but a calendar event template that might be helpful as you go put in descriptions for your calendar events so that it's useful to the public, subgrantees, and grantees coming to your event. The library is for resources developed under your project. These are resources like booklets, toolkits, not curriculum. So we don't want curriculum or PowerPoints here. We would want people to reach out directly to you to get information about trainings and curriculum, but anything else that's developed under your project should be put on here into the resource library. You can download statistics of how many downloads of your document are there so that you can put that in your progress reporting information. And as I mentioned, the directory is a list of all TA provider organizations and your projects. This is also your responsibility to keep up to date, and we encourage that the contact that you put on here as the project contact is the person working directly on the project. We know that awards usually have an authorized rep or a point of contact, and that does not have to be the name that's listed on the project. So for TA to TA, while I'm not the authorized rep on our award, I am the staff project contact because I manage this project. We try to do bi-monthly newsletters of information, both from OVW, and share resources from TA providers, upcoming events, and new resources and services that TA to TA is providing. We always love to hear from you about needs that you have and see if there's a way that we can connect and provide a resource to help you with your questions and needs. On TA to TA, there is a new TA provider toolkit. This just has some information about getting started, contact information for OVW, project partners for TA to TA, and how to use the website. So this is really great information. It's public on the TA to TA website, and we encourage you to check this out. Today's recording, this session, along with all the other recordings of the orientation, will be posted to the TA to TA website, as Neela mentioned. It will be on the OVW Grantee Orientation webpage, and you will click on Training and Technical Assistance Initiative. So we encourage you, if you have colleagues who are unable to attend or think might benefit from a session, we encourage you to lead them here to this webpage, and you can also download the materials that we provided today. We'll post them here as well. If you would like a walkthrough of the TA to TA website, I'm happy to do a personal tour with you. So please reach out to me. I'm happy to show you the different sections of the website, what it means when you have a login, and how to request services. So please reach out to me directly. I'll put my email in the chat box. It's also here at the end of the PowerPoint. But I'm happy, because I know I went through all this very quickly today. I'm happy to meet with you one-on-one. The upcoming sessions for the TA Initiative Orientation, tomorrow we will have effective evaluations and reporting for trainings in TA. I know Neela went over this, so this is just a highlight again of what is coming up, and we encourage you to attend them all if you're new staff, or a new TA provider, or if you want a refresher, please join us. The office-wide orientation webinars These two, civil rights obligations and fraud investigations, are required for the TA orientation. It is a separate registration link, so I will send this PowerPoint to all of you as well if you need this registration link to register for these two sessions. And the recorded webinars to watch are posted to the orientation website. There's also a form on the website where you can fill out the orientations you have attended and submit it to the OVW Tech Assistance box. Neelam, do you want to talk about this?
Sure. So it is one form for your one organization, and you will just add the names of who attended either the live webinar or watched the video. And then after, I think it's 10 days after the last live webinar, the tracking sheet will be due to the OVW Tech Assistance mailbox. This is only really required of new staff for TA projects and new TA organizations. So if you are an existing TA provider who's been here a while, you don't have to fill it out, but you can if you want to, and then send it to us as well. But it is a requirement for new staff and new TA organizations. And feel free to reach out to me at Tech Assistance if you have questions about the form. And I was just saying, I know last year there were some glitches with the form when how I created it. I did not create it this year. I had someone else who was much smarter than me create it. So we shouldn't have those box issues.
And I know we reached the end of our time, so I just want to say that if you have questions, we're happy to answer them, but also please reach out to us. Our email addresses are here. OVW Tech Assistance box is here. We're so glad that you could join us today, and we look forward to the rest of the orientation series, and we're happy to be in partnership with all of you.
Yes, thank you all so much. And feel free to reach out to us, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.